Hello and welcome. You're watching the News Track. I'm Rahul Kamal. On the News Track this evening, we'll dissect the Prime Minister's interview, what was asked, what was said, what wasn't asked, all that and more coming up on the News Track.
डर तो पाप का होता है, ईमानदार को क्या डर होता है?
4 days before polls, Prime Minister declares State of War 2024.
भारत माता की!
Modi की गारंटी versus Congress गारंटी.
जहां तक गारंटी का सवाल है, आज हमारे यहां दुर्भाग्य से शब्दों के प्रति जो कमिटमेंट होना चाहिए, वो एक प्रकार से लग रहा है कि तो चलते का नाम गाड़ी, कुछ भी बोल दो, कहीं पर भी बोल दो, कोई जिम्मेवारी नहीं.
राम मंदिर टू सनातन धर्म.
सवाल कांग्रेस को पूछना चाहिए कि तुम्हारी क्या मजबूरी है कि सनातन के खिलाफ इतना जहर उगलने वाले लोगों के साथ तुम क्यों बैठे हो भाई? क्या तुम्हारी राजनीति अधूरी रह जाएगी क्या?
An ED to electoral bonds and EVMs.
इलेक्टोरल बॉन्ड न होते तो किस व्यवस्था में ताकत है को ढूंढ के निकालते कि पैसा कहां से आया और कहां गया. ये तो इलेक्टोरल बॉन्ड की सक्सेस स्टोरी है.
Prime Minister's biggest attack on opposition. Big focus on News Track.
4 days before the first phase of polling kicks off, the Prime Minister has launched a scathing attack on the opposition. From hitting out at Rahul Gandhi for his Ek Jhatke Mein Garibi Hata Denge comment to slamming the DMK for the Sanatan Dharm issue, a combative Prime Minister set the tone for the 2024 elections. PM Modi hit back on the criticism of electoral bonds and the alleged misuse of central investigative agencies. Here's more.
अभी मैंने एक नेता का भाषण सुना. उन्होंने कहा, एक झटके में मैं गरीबी हटा दूंगा. अब जिनको 5-5, 6-6 दशक देश का राज करने को मिला, वो जब आज कहेंगे कि मैं एक झटके में गरीबी हटा दूंगा, तो देश सोचता है ये क्या बोल रहे हैं. तो मुझे लगता है पॉलिटिकल लीडरशिप की क्वेश्चनेबल होती जा रही है. ऐसे में प्राण जाए और वचन न जाए, ये महान परंपरा से हम निकले हुए लोग हैं. मैं मानता हूं कि नेताओं ने ओनरशिप लेनी चाहिए, जिम्मेवारी लेनी चाहिए. ये मैं जो बोल रहा हूं मतलब मेरी जिम्मेवारी है. ये कोई करेगा, ऐसा करेगा, ऐसे नहीं चलता है. और उसमें से मैंने बल दिया है गारंटी का. मैं कमिटमेंट भी करता हूं और उसका मैं ओनरशिप ले रहा हूं. और जब ओनरशिप लेते हैं ना, तो देश को भरोसा होता है. 2024 का चुनाव तो देश के सामने एक अवसर है कि एक कांग्रेस सरकार का मॉडल और एक बीजेपी सरकार का मॉडल, उनका 5-6 दशक का काम, मैं उनके लिए बहुत खुला मैदान छोड़ता हूं. 5-6 दशक का काम और मेरा सिर्फ 10 साल का काम. कंपैरिजन कीजिए, किसी भी क्षेत्र में कंपैरिजन कीजिए. अगर कुछ कमियां होगी तो भी हमारी एफर्ट्स में कमी नहीं रही होगी. दूसरा, मुझे 10 साल में 2 साल तो कोविड की लड़ाई में जाना पड़ा और आफ्टर इफेक्ट भी बहुत था. फिर भी आज हम कंपैरेटिवली देश को स्पीड कहो, स्केल कहो, सर्वांगीण विकास की बात करें तो वो कहें, सर्वसमावेशक विकास की बात कहें तो वो देखें. हर पैरामीटर पे आपको कांग्रेस के मॉडल से एक ऐसा मॉडल नजर आ रहा है कि हाँ, इस रास्ते पर हम चलेंगे. इतनी गति से, और गति और बढ़ानी है मुझे. अगले टर्म में गति भी बढ़ानी है और स्केल भी बढ़ाना है.
हम ट्रांसपेरेंसी की बात करते हैं तो विपक्ष कहता है कि ईडी, सीबीआई, आईटी, सारे के सारे इदारे जो हैं, इलेक्शन कमीशन को भी जोड़ते हैं वो, कि सारे इदारों पर बीजेपी हावी है और लेवल प्लेइंग फील्ड है ही नहीं। मतलब दे ऑलरेडी मेकिंग द ग्राउंड कि इलेक्शन जो है वो फेयर नहीं हो सकता।
इसमें एक भी कानून मेरी सरकार ने नहीं बनाया, चाहे ईडी हो, सीबीआई हो, चाहे इलेक्शन कमीशन। ऊपर से हमने तो इलेक्शन कमीशन में सुधार किए हैं। आज इलेक्शन कमीशन बनता है तो ऑपोजिशन भी उसमें होता है। पहले तो प्रधानमंत्री एक फाइल पे साइन करके इलेक्शन कमीशन बना देता था, और जो उनके परिवार के साथ निकट जुड़े थे ऐसे ऐसे लोग इलेक्शन कमिश्नर बने थे। ऐसे लोग इलेक्शन कमिश्नर बने थे जो वहां से निकलने के बाद राज्यसभा के मेंबर बने, उनकी सरकार के मिनिस्टर बने। ऐसे इलेक्शन कमिश्नर बने थे जो कांग्रेस के बाद में कैंडिडेट बने। और इसलिए हम उस लेवल पे प्ले नहीं कर सकते, तो हमारा लेवल प्ले फील्ड हो ही नहीं सकता, हम ऐसे बन ही नहीं सकते। हम अच्छे रास्ते पर जाना चाहते हैं, हम उस रास्ते पर जाना नहीं चाहते। दूसरी बात है, आखिर ईडी सीबीआई कैसे बनी? ईडी वगैरह का आप देखेंगे या इलेक्शन कमीशन, अपने एक कहावत है, नाच न जाने आंगन टेढ़ा। और इसलिए कभी ईवीएम का बहाना निकालेंगे, कभी मूलतः पराजय के लिए वो कुछ रीजनिंग अभी से सेट करने में लगे हैं ताकि पराजय उनके खाते में न चढ़ जाए। इलेक्टोरल बॉन्ड न होते तो किस व्यवस्था में ताकत है वो ढूंढ के निकालते कि पैसा कहां से आया और कहां गया। ये तो इलेक्टोरल बॉन्ड की सक्सेस स्टोरी है कि इलेक्टोरल बॉन्ड थे तो आपको ट्रेल मिल रहा है मनी का, कि किस कंपनी ने दिया, कैसे दिया, कहां दिया। अब उसमें अच्छा हुआ बुरा हुआ वो विवाद का विषय हो सकता है, इसकी चर्चा हो। मुझे जो चिंता है वो, मैं ये कभी नहीं कहता हूं निर्णय में कोई कमी नहीं होती है। निर्णय तो चर्चा कर सीखते हैं, सुधारते हैं, इसमें भी सुधार के लिए बहुत संभावना है। लेकिन आज हम पूरी तरह काले धन की तरफ देश को धकेल दिया है, और इसलिए मैं कहता हूं सब लोग पछताएंगे। जब बात में ईमानदारी से सोचेंगे सब लोग पछताएंगे। अब देखिए इलेक्टोरल बॉन्ड का भी विशेषता थी, कैसा झूठ चल रहा है। कुल देश में 3000 कंपनियों ने इलेक्टोरल बॉन्ड दिए हैं। उसमें 3000 में 26 कंपनियां ऐसी हैं जिन पर कार्रवाई हुई है। ये कहते हैं ना ईडी वीडी टिकना फला, 3000 डोनर है, उसमें सिर्फ 26, और उनमें से 16 कंपनियां ऐसी थी छापा जब लगा उस समय बॉन्ड खरीदा। कोई जोड़ सकता है इसको? अगर बॉन्ड खरीदा, लोग ये जोड़ रहे हैं, उसकी विशेषता यह है कि ये जो 16 कंपनियों ने बॉन्ड खरीदा उसमें से 37 पैसा अमाउंट बीजेपी को डोनेशन में मिली। 37, 63% बीजेपी के विरोधी पार्टियों को मिली।
अगर पूरे जोड़े जाएं तो हाँ।
मैं ये 16 कंपनी जिसका ईडी सीबीआई कोई न कोई उस समय एक्शन भी हुआ और बॉन्ड भी निकला, 37% अमाउंट बीजेपी ने, 63 ऑपोजिशन को। जो कांग्रेस जिसके साथ किसी जमाने में महात्मा गांधी का नाम जुड़ा हुआ था, जो कांग्रेस जहां इंदिरा गांधी जी गले में माला खुलेआम पहन करके घूमती थी,
रुद्राक्ष माला जो, हाँ,
रुद्राक्ष माला पहन करके घूमती थी इंदिरा जी। सवाल कांग्रेस को पूछना चाहिए कि तुम्हारी क्या मजबूरी है कि सनातन के खिलाफ इतना जहर उगलने वाले लोगों के साथ तुम क्यों बैठे हो भाई? क्या तुम्हारी राजनीति अधूरी रह जाएगी क्या? ये कौन सी कांग्रेस की सोच विकृति आ रही है कांग्रेस में, ये चिंता का विषय है। डीएमके का तो जन्म शायद इस नफरत में पैदा हुआ होगा, और धीरे धीरे वो नफरत का खेल भी उनका लोग स्वीकार करने नहीं लगे हैं, और इसलिए वो नए नए तौर तरीके अपना करके बोल रहे। प्रश्न उनका नहीं है, प्रश्न कांग्रेस जैसी पार्टी का है कि उसने अपना मूल कैरेक्टर गंवा दिया है क्या? जब संविधान सभा में जो लोग बैठे थे तो ज्यादातर गांधीयन लोग थे, ज्यादातर कांग्रेस की विचारधारा से जुड़े हुए लोग थे। और पहला संविधान बना, उसके हर पेज पर जो पेंटिंग है
रामायण,
वो सनातन की ही परंपरा से जुड़े हुए हैं। तो आपका संविधान बना, उस संविधान में सनातन का गौरव का हिस्सा था। और आज सनातन को इतनी भयंकर गालियां देने की हिम्मत हो और आप उनके साथ चुनाव की राजनीति करें, उनके साथ मंच साझा करें, मजबूरी कांग्रेस की, ये देश के लिए चिंता का विषय है।
After 10 years of being in power non-stop, it's very difficult for any leader to come across as being completely fresh. But Prime Minister Modi in that interview comes across as reassured. He's very measured, trying to compare his actions with the promises and claims of the opposition. This is his first big televised interview this campaign season to try and deconstruct what he's saying and also what he's not, and how this is likely to be interpreted by the Indian voter right ahead of the first phase of polling. I'm joined on this broadcast by my colleague, India Today's consulting editor Rajdeep Sardesai. With us also is political analyst and author Ashutosh. We've got representing the ruling Bharatiya Janata Party, its spokesperson Ajay Alok. Mohan Kumaramangalam represents the Congress, and we've got Raghav Avasthi, political analyst who's with the BJP. Rajdeep, to you first, because this is 5 years after his previous round of interviews that the Prime Minister is doing a 78-minute interview. What stood out? To me, he just comes across as very calm. There's almost like the sage-like aura that he's seeking to project by being very calm and reassured in what he's saying. What stood out most to you, Rajdeep?
Look, this is a Prime Minister clearly who believes that 2024 is almost a done deal. This is a Prime Minister, therefore, who exudes the confidence of someone who feels it's almost certain that he will be the next Prime Minister, which is why he's talking of a 100-day plan of what he's going to do once he gets re-elected, not if he gets re-elected. And I thought it was interesting at the very end, he spoke about this election is for the future, for 2047. So those who are first-time voters will be the beneficiaries in 2047. So clearly, Rahul, it's someone speaking with that confidence which perhaps was not there to the same extent in 2014, was there to some extent in 2019, but now he seems to believe he's almost invincible. I mean, he doesn't address some of the tough questions of our times, particularly questions related to unemployment, which I think is going to be a critical challenge for any government, not just this government, but for any government. He doesn't really address the issue of cooperative federalism. He talks about it, but the reality on the ground is different. He speaks about the enforcement directorate and says that, look, only 3% of the cases are against politicians. Look at the number of other cases and assets seized. But the truth is, out of that 3%, 95% are opposition leaders. So there are elements which you could argue with. He speaks about Parivarvad. I'm just back from Karnataka, where they've tied up with the JDS. H.D. Kumaraswamy and H.D. Devagowda, who was called a father-son combination. He talks about the DMK and says, why is the Congress aligning with an anti-Sanatan Dharma party, forgetting that the Vajpayee government had the same DMK with the same ideology as its prime ally. So he can at times not tell you the full truth, but I think he comes with the confidence of someone who's offering a positive agenda. I think the difference, Rahul, between Prime Minister Modi and the opposition at the moment is simply this. The opposition has been unable to set a narrative on a sustained basis. The Prime Minister has been able to convey that this election is about 2047. You could argue he's changing the goalposts from 2022 New India to 2047 Amrit Kal, but at least, Rahul, he's offering what he believes is a vision for the future. And I think that is critical, particularly for a younger voter. And he kept talking about that first-time younger voter. So I think this is a Prime Minister confident of his victory, or what he believes will be a imminent victory, but also unwilling to really talk about some of the negatives. Like, Mr. Modi is a feel-good politician. So when you end the interview, you end up feeling a sense of positive energy. That's what is his biggest strength.
Ashutosh, he's coming across as being so calm that there is no sense of desperation, alarm or unease. It's almost as if here's a man who's saying, listen very carefully to every word I say because I intend to do everything I say. And that's the message that he's trying to communicate to the Indian voter. What stood out to you in this first interview?
See, Rahul, you call him calm, but I think there is a lot of turbulence within his calmness. And because in 2014, 2019, I had seen the Prime Minister setting a kind of narrative, but this is the first time I'm witnessing that before even the first phase of election has started, he's talking about the Muslim League, he's talking about the Mughal Sultanate, he's talking about the Shahzade, he's talking about Sultan, and he's talking about Ram Mandir and all that. If I remember correctly, in 2014, probably in Assam, he made a statement, something on these lines, in the Hindu-Muslim lines. And 2019, probably once or twice he did it, but here he's starting a campaign with that. So I see a lack of narrative on behalf of a lack of narrative from the Prime Minister itself. In this interview also, he's talking about electoral bonds. But has he answered the question about the secrecy? Why secrecy? Why State Bank of India was not willing to disclose before 30th of June, and when you asked by the Supreme Court, within 24 hours they did it. Second point is, it's not about opposition has also got the electoral bond. Yes, opposition has got the electoral bond because you made the law, the government has made the law, so everybody was entitled for that. But what about this? The question, the moot question was that how can the BJP take 5 crores from a person who was arrested 5 days before? And this is the real issue about the electoral bond. The electoral bond about secrecy is an understatement in that sense. But electoral bond where those who are giving donations, ED was attaching the properties.
Okay. Let Ajay Alok respond to what Ashutosh is saying, that beneath that outward assertion of calm is an internal anxiety. Ashutosh says, look at the references to the Muslim League, Shehzada, Sultan, Ram Mandir. He seems to suggest this is a government and a Prime Minister that is on the path to try and polarize the electorate. How do you respond to this, Ajay Alok?
Well, Ashutosh is full within his rights to make a comment, but I guess he has not listened to the Prime Minister interview carefully. Otherwise, he wouldn't have commented on electoral bonds, because Prime Minister very clearly mentioned that when businessmen used to come to us to give money, they refused to give us money by check, because they had the fear that if we give you by check, the ruling party or the opposition may be a problem or may be a cause of concern, so they never wanted to give it from check. And then came the idea of this electoral bonds. So I guess before passing any comment, you must listen properly to what Prime Minister says. Secondly, being a ruling party and in our manifesto, when we talk of Uniform Civil Code, which is there in the Constitution, which is there as a constitutional entity, and when our opposition party gets out with a manifesto which says that we are going to strengthen the personal law, we are going to enhance them, we will not oppose, we will give full statehood to Jammu Kashmir, we will not oppose, and in a way indirect mention of abrogation of Article 370, then the Prime Minister has to talk about Muslim League, has to talk about Shehzada, because the whole manifesto of the Congress and the other parties reflects a clear-cut mindset of destabilizing the country.
Mohan Kumar Amangalam, respond to what Ajay Alok is saying. Because the one place where the Prime Minister seems to portray Rahul Gandhi as being highly immature is where Rahul Gandhi says, if I come to power, I'll remove poverty. And the Prime Minister says these people have been in power for 5-6 decades. They couldn't remove poverty in all the time that they were in power. And Rahul Gandhi seems to think he has some kind of a magic wand. And to most people who are watching, the manner in which the Prime Minister takes apart Rahul Gandhi's argument, would sound quite convincing. There is no magic wand with which Rahul Gandhi can make poverty disappear.
Rahul, it depends on how you define poverty, because as far as this government is concerned, if you listen to the Niti Aayog or the chairman of the Niti Aayog, we've already eliminated poverty. As far as multi-dimensional poverty goes, whether it's 11% or later on the comment made or the statement made on it being 5%, less than 5% are poor. So what is poverty? First, let's define that. And what Mr. Gandhi said is the scheme that we're talking about in our manifesto, which is 1 lakh to the woman head of the household every year, will help us bring people above the poverty line, thereby eliminating poverty to that extent. And every government has built on the government before. Now, let me respond to what Ajay Alok said. He's talked about restoration of statehood of Jammu and Kashmir as if it's a negative. It's a Supreme Court order, and you have promised to do it as soon as possible as well. As far as restoration of 370, there's no mention of that in the manifesto. So please don't misrepresent what our manifesto says and stick to what you're going to say. Now, I will agree with my friend Ashutosh here, who said that there was a bit of turbulence, and I'll tell you why. Now, frankly, he should be as calm as possible, because this interview is not very dissimilar than the earlier interviews he's done, where it's entirely scripted. Rajdeep talked about some questions he didn't answer, Ashutosh did as well. Well, they weren't asked of him, why would he answer them? We've gone from talking about mangoes in 2019 to Musk in 2024. There's no mention of Manipur. There's no mention of the really important issues that people are upset about.
No,
today,
but can I just pause you there for a moment? Because when some politician sitting in the opposition says the interview is scripted, Rajdeep, that's always a tough one. Because, he's taken questions for 78...
Why weren't the hard questions asked? And why wasn't he questioned on electoral bonds?
For example, when Sonia Gandhi was interviewed, how many tough questions did she answer? No, that's a very, from the perspective of the journalist who's asking the questions, he's trying to do as good a job as is possible given the circumstances and ask whatever questions can be asked. That's always a very, very tricky situation, Rajdeep.
No, it's a problem.
How can you convince the opposition that it's a tough interview?
The truth of the matter is that we do not want to make our politicians feel uncomfortable across the line. That's bad journalism. It's our fault. I remember interviewing Sonia Gandhi, and before the interview, famously being told she won't take political questions, which is what
you got trolled quite badly for that.
And I got trolled. But the truth of the matter is, most of our politicians are unwilling to take the tough questions. I agree with Mr. Kumaramangalam. The Prime Minister should be asked tough follow-up questions. For example, on Manipur, the Prime Minister should be asked. I mentioned Sanatan Dharma. Vajpayee's government ties up with the same BJP, with the same ideology. How, that's an obvious follow-up question. I mentioned the Enforcement Directorate. 95% of the 3% are opposition leaders. It's an obvious follow-up question. The Chief Justice of India is removed from the panel on the Election Commission's appointment. It's an obvious one. We don't ask them. I'm not trying to claim that I'm any different. Most politicians today take very scripted interviews. I was delighted to be in Karnataka because it's one of the few states you can just go to a politician, whether Siddaramaiah, Kumaraswamy, any of them, and ask whatever questions you want. But there are all too few politicians, even state leaders, Rahul, you know better, are also now reluctant to answer the tough questions. This is the Prime Minister setting his agenda on his terms. Let's be clear. Now, is it the job of us journalists to allow a leader to do that? It's questionable. I would prefer, I mean, at the end of the day, I guess as a result, you won't get an interview unless you're really willing to push him. There was a time, and Mr. Modi, let me be honest, Rahul, people don't know this. 25 years ago, used to take whatever question you wanted and hit you back as good as you got. That was Mr. Modi pre-2001, when he was not even the Chief Minister of Gujarat. Things have changed now, not just him, but across the board. Mohan Kumaramangalam may disagree with this, but where does Sonia Gandhi take the tough questions?
Where does Rahul Gandhi take any questions at all in an interview? When was the last time he did an interview? When was the last time he did an interview? When was the last time he did an interview?
How many?
When was the last time he did an interview?
I'll respond to you. It doesn't have to be an interview. How many press meets, press conferences he done? Completely unscripted press conferences around Bharat Jodo Yatra. Which question has he not taken? You are welcome to ask any question in those press meets. None of it was
when
scripted.
Has he taken and done
Please
an
ask
interview?
Your colleagues if
okay, let Raghav Avasthi come in on
why
this.
Does the format have to be an interview?
But you can't determine, does the interview and the fact that he's answering questions for 78 minutes, Raghav Avasthi, address the charge of the Prime Minister answering questions? Because he can say it's a free-flowing interview, 78 minutes, I asked all that was thrown at me.
I think most of the issues that the opposition has been talking about, I think the biggest talking point these days is electoral bonds. So there was a question in relation to electoral bonds. There were other questions also in relation to the election commissioner and everything. And Mr. Modi has answered them to the best of his ability. There are some people who are sitting on this panel who today sound holier than thou. I still remember they were asking Sonia Gandhi about her culinary preferences and what she likes to cook and eat. So I think
Raghav Awasthi,
nobody
I
has the right.
I am an open book.
Nobody
I
has
have
the
given
right.
you, Mr. Awasthi, you must be direct. I have told you the circumstances. Before the interview, she said she will not take political questions. I am very clear about it. That Sonia Gandhi is no different in many ways. She has not taken the tough political questions. That does not stop Mr. Modi from taking the tough political questions. On electoral bonds, for example, you would ask the obvious question about the so-called quid pro quos. Mr. Awasthi, let's not be economical with the truth. Just giving first principles on electoral bonds is not an answer to a question. Electoral bonds is a complex issue that requires hard cross-examination. Why did the State Bank of India virtually lie, dare I use the word, to the Supreme Court of the country? These are questions to be asked, Mr. Awasthi.
As far as electoral bonds are concerned, electoral bonds were available to everyone, all the political parties. And I think if you look at the number of MPs and MLAs the BJP has, so vis-a-vis that number, the BJP actually didn't receive that much money by way of electoral bonds. Per capita legislator, the TMC and the Congress received more money. So it's a bit unfortunate when the BJP is singled out, as if other political parties took a principled stand and said that they will not accept any funds via electoral bonds.
No, but Ashutosh, on the question of whether the questions are tough, whether it's a real interview, that's always a tough one. You've been a journalist yourself. Anybody who didn't do the interview is convinced कि interview तो फर्जी है. जो किया interview उसको लग रहा है इतनी मुश्किल से मैंने जो हो सकता था पूछा. So it's all you can never plea. You can never have Rahul Gandhi or Mohan Kumar Mangalam give a certificate saying, "Oh, great interview." They're never going to do it. I mean, if it's a Rahul Gandhi interview, they'd love it. If it's a Modi interview, they'll think it's rubbish.
Rahul, I can say that I'm lucky enough because I never interviewed a sitting prime minister. I interviewed two prime ministers who became prime minister after 2 days. Mr. Manmohan Singh, he became the prime minister, and 2 days before I interviewed him, and also the SD Devagowda. Forget about it. See, I have no quarrel with Mr. Narendra Modi not giving interview to me or to Rajdeep Sardesai. That's his democratic right. He's within his right to exercise that right. The point is simple. The point is, the biggest issue which is facing the country right now is unemployment. And the Prime Minister should be quizzed on that. The biggest issue is the price rise. The Prime Minister should be quizzed on that. The corruption has increased in the last 5 years. CSDS survey is clearly underlining this. And the corruption is increased. The price rise is increased as well. And also the joblessness has increased in the last 5 years. These are the issues on which the Prime Minister should be asked, should be quizzed. And if the Prime Minister has not answered those questions, then you could have blame the Prime Minister. If those questions are not asked, how can you blame the Prime Minister? So issue is very simple. It's not about Rahul Gandhi and it's not about Narendra Modi. It's about the mindset. I have run a channel. I never got a call from the Prime Minister's office that why are you running this story? Or never felt threatened that I could lose my job. Or none of our reporters were threatened that they could lose their job. Today that is not the case, but let's not get into that. The fact of the matter is the issue about electoral bond is not who's getting how much money. Okay. The issue is the use of the quid pro quo, which is the direct relationship. 5 days before the man is arrested, and after 5 days he buys a bond.
Ajay Alok, respond to what Ashutosh is saying on the issue of unemployment, price rise, the sense that the Prime Minister didn't communicate enough about what was being done to deal with these issues. That those issues, as we've seen in recent surveys, are front and center for the Indian voter and they weren't addressed head on.
When Prime Minister was addressing the first time voter, he addressed on a whole range of issues. The point is that Ashutosh has not listened to the interview properly, that what kind of a path he wants to take to India on. And what are the aspirations of the young India? And particularly on the employment, job, each and everything, please go through our what we have released, the Modi ki guarantee. You will learn to know which are the key sectors we are addressing to, which will create employment and which will create a good health of employment. See, the problem is that if you have a biased mind, you cannot be very true to your judgment. This is the problem with Ashutosh, so I can't help it. But the fact is, again, that a Prime Minister should be quizzed, Prime Minister should be quizzed. The Prime Minister's interview is not for you. The Prime Minister interview is for the nation. The nation wants to know how this Prime Minister wants to take the nation forward in the next 5 years. You can keep on criticizing on every amount of time, but every different sector, what you have added. Today also he spoke about his meeting with Elon Musk and the potential of EV generating employment and environmental hazard and everything. The kind of efforts being done in agricultural sector, other sector, the railway sector, all the huge infrastructure we are going to build upon. These are all generating, this will and are generating employment. But your mind is stuck, so we can't help it actually.
Okay, Ashutosh wants to come in and make a quick interjection. Ashutosh.
Say Rahul, on the issue of manufacturing sector, let me come straight with the data. 2010, the manufacturing sector has 17% contribution into the GDP. In 2022, it's just 13%. If your manufacturing sector is not improving, how will you create jobs? Forget about it. Let's talk about joblessness. In 2023, it's 8.03%, the highest ever. In 2008, it was 5.41. In 2014, or other 2013, 5.41, 5.42, 5.44, 5.44, 5.42, 5.536. The issue is the Prime Minister doesn't want to accept that there is the huge unemployment. The age 22 to 24. The unemployment rate is 44%, which is unimaginable. If the country is growing, if manufacturing sector is growing, if economy is growing, why such a humongous joblessness in the country? Because if the Prime Minister chooses not to accept, not to admit that there is a crisis, how will you? And look at the manifesto. I think this is one of the most sterile manifesto I've ever seen during the election by any political party. You compare that with the Congress. It looks, at least it tries to answer the questions. That there is an apprenticeship issue for the unemployment. There is a 50% reservation for the women in the government job. That might look very dreamy, but at least the manifesto tries to find answers.
Let Raghav Awasthi respond to Ashutosh's point that at least on the issue of unemployment, whether it is through jobs in private sector or through quotas or through the apprenticeship program, the Congress, Ashutosh says, is trying to accept that unemployment is a problem and tell us what to do with it. Whereas in the BJP manifesto, or from what you're hearing from the Prime Minister, there is no acknowledgement of just how real the problem is, given also the fact that recent data shows that even at the Indian Institute of Management and in the Indian Institute of Technology, India's premier educational institutes, about 1/3 of the batch hasn't been employed at the end of the course.
Let me answer this. I think if you want to tackle the problem of unemployment, the first thing that you need to have is industrialization. And I think if we look at the manifesto, when it talks about building highways, roads and airports, it's actually building the physical infrastructure that is necessary for robust economic growth. Jobs cannot be provided like handouts, and handouts cannot take the place of good economics and industrial policy and growth. So this socialist shibboleth is something that we really need to demolish, that the government has some sort of a bounden duty to provide jobs to everyone. Ultimately, it's industry, the private sector, and the government is there to facilitate. The government is definitely there to facilitate and ensure that there is a level playing field. And if you look at the kind of reforms in the legal sector that have been spoken about, then it will definitely help ease of doing business, enforcement of contracts, and so on and so forth. But this idea somehow that a job which is on the pattern of a government job is some sort of an entitlement is something that really needs to be challenged, and it's something that's outdated. It's Stalinist economics.
Okay, I'm running out of time. Final words in terms of the messaging.
I just want to add one.
Yes, Ajay Alok, respond to opponents who will say that the Prime Minister sounds a bit same old because people have been hearing him for 10 years. Therefore, there is that zing which was there in 2014, which is still there in 2019. The opposition will say, ab wo baat nahi hai, because he's been in power for that long. Is that a real concern? Do you think he's addressing that adequately? Ajay Alok.
First of all, yes, I'll definitely answer that. First of all, I'd like to remember Ashutosh again that in 2010, when he says that 22% GDP contribution was there for manufacturing, in 2010, our GDP was 76 lakh crores, sir, and if the growth was 22%, you think it was very much adequate. But today, we have a GDP of 3.8 lakh crores, 5-time increase from 2010, and still we are maintaining a growth rate of 13%, like what you said. So which is better? 76 lakhs versus 22% or 3.8 lakh crore versus 13%. Please use your grey matters. And secondly, Prime Minister has not changed for the last 22 years. He's still the same. He's a man of development. He's a man of words. So when he says that you have to have clarity on your words, you have to respect your words, and you have to hold your words, and you should be accountable for your words, that means he means business. And people of this country understand. If people like Ashutosh and other opposition fellows don't understand, it's not our problem. And Prime Minister is not one who keep on changing colors every election and who keeps on trying to launch and relaunch himself.
That's an important point. Let Ashutosh respond to Ajay Alok.
There's a lot of difference.
That there is a sense of continuity. He's not jumping around saying crazy and dramatic things because he doesn't need to. He has credibility built over 22 years. He thinks the people of India understand him. He thinks he understands the people, which is why he doesn't need to say dramatic things. And despite not saying crazy things, despite being calm and assured, he still is confident that people will vote for him, Ashutosh. Aap mute pe ho.
Now, Ajay Alok is selectively using data. In 2004, the Indian GDP, the size of the economy was something around $56 billion. When the Manmohan Singh left office in 2014, it was $1.86 trillion. And the growth from 2004. No. I did not disturb Mr. Ajay Alok. Please don't disturb me. So the growth was almost 250%. From 1.8 to 3, something like this. The growth from Narendra Modi's time is almost 75%. So if you're comparing data relatively, don't pick and choose. The size of economy, if you say the Indian size of economy in 1975 and then compare today, it's not because of Mr. Narendra Modi itself. And I tell you, in 2018, I was just looking at the data. The unemployment rate suddenly jumped to the high ground for the simple reason because without knowing, without understanding anything, you went for the demonetization. And that's where the economy got disrupted. And then you brainlessly used the GST. And that's where the economy started taking a different turn altogether. And that's where the joblessness started getting high. The price rise got high. Prime Minister has never accepted that demonetization was a wrong thing, was a mistake on his part. Or the messing up the GST was wrong on his part. He never accepted it. But the fact is, till 2017, the economy was growing well. But why the economy has gone wrong?
You know, whether the economy is going wrong or not, Mohan Kumaramangalam is ultimately something only the Indian voter will decide. One second, Ajay. From the 19th of April, it's the voter who will decide. You know, you have a view, Ashutosh has a view. The Indian voter will give his view on it, and that's the view we must all respect.
Absolutely, Rahul. Let me just make some quick points here. One, every government before this government has doubled our GDP in a decade. This is the only government that's failed to do it, right? Real wages have stagnated. Household savings are down. This is recent data that's come out. So if household savings are down, real wages have stagnated, you will obviously have contraction in consumption. And when there is contraction in demand and consumption, you will not have private investors join the party. And that's where I agree with my friend Raghav Awasthi, which is that if you don't have private investment join the party, you will not be able to create jobs. Just burying your head in the sand and pretending it's not a problem is not going to solve the issue. And the Prime Minister in his entire interview, and by the way, I saw his entire interview, the level of balderdash was next level. He actually said that Congress wanted the Ram Mandir not to be built so it could use it as a political issue. If there's any party in this country that's used the Ram Mandir as a political issue to go from 2 seats to 90 something, it's the BJP. He wasn't asked about that. He actually said that because Tamil Nadu is going to polls in the first phase, that people of Tamil Nadu are tired of the Dravidian model or the Tamil Nadu regional parties. They look at UP and Bihar and other states governed by the BJP and want to be like them. Tamil Nadu has the highest gross enrollment ratio. Its per capita income is twice that of UP. I mean, there were no follow-up questions on these things, which are just like, gimmies, which is why I'm saying this was just another scripted interview. And you can take offense to that, but it was just too much out of there. None of the important questions were addressed, like I say, unemployment, inflation.
Ajay Alok, final words before I wrap up, a final counter to Kumaramangalam.
Well, I would like to say first again to Ashutosh that when you stammer while you speak, that means you are not confident of yourself. So if you are not confident of yourself, please stop teaching the Prime Minister of this country. And as far as my congressman goes, as far as my congressman goes, no, it's not a joke, it's the truth. You always stammer when you speak lies. And as far as my Congress friend goes, well, if it's a scripted interview, you keep on believing that, but Rahul Gandhi cannot give an interview. This is also a problem. I also know Rahul Gandhi cannot give even a scripted interview, because if any question is asked, other than the syllabus, the answer will be completely different, because he doesn't understand what is India. He's still
we are out of time.
India.
It is. 5 seconds.
Okay, very quick.
Ajay Alok need to apologize to those who are challenged.
Who have a speech impediment.
Yes, she should apologize to them, because he made fun of them.
He should apologize.
That those who are stammered, they are not confident. I think it's very sad comment, because it is coming from a spokesperson, national spokesperson of a.
It's not a sad
party.
comment. You don't know the subject and you are making baseless allegation. I proved you wrong with your own data.
Let's wrap this up.
That's the problem.
From an opposition lens, no interview is good enough. From the government's lens, the Prime Minister's answered questions for 78 minutes. What you made of the Modi interview, you decide. That's the way we deal with it on the news track. We don't tell you what to think. You've heard different points of view, as always on the news track. We leave it to you to decide what you thought of the Prime Minister's responses and the journalists' questions. He's the successor of BSP Supremo Mayawati and has spoken out exclusively to India Today in his first television interview. Akash Anand is holding rallies after rallies in Uttar Pradesh and is fighting with another young Dalit leader, Chandrasekhar Azad, for control over his key constituency. Here's an exclusive conversation with Mayawati's nephew and BSP's national coordinator, Akash Anand.
नमस्कार, स्वागत है आपका। मैं हूं कुमार अभिषेक। 2024 के इस चुनाव में अगर कोई उत्तर प्रदेश के लिहाज से सबसे बड़ा इंटरव्यू है तो वो है आकाश आनंद का। जी हां, आकाश आनंद मायावती के बीएसपी के वारिस और बीएसपी के नंबर 2 नेता आकाश आनंद इस वक्त हमारे साथ हैं और इस खास इंटरव्यू में आज हम समझेंगे कि बीएसपी को लेकर जो नया नेतृत्व है या यूं कहें जो आगे का नेतृत्व है वो क्या सोचता है, वो कैसे सोचता है। हमारे साथ हैं आकाश आनंद। स्वागत है आकाश जी आपका।
जय भीम।
जय भीम। तो आकाश जी, एक बात आपसे ऐसे शुरू करते हैं कि हमने उत्तर प्रदेश का जो चुनाव इस वक्त चल रहा है तो मैंने देखा कि आप उत्तर प्रदेश के बाहर की जिम्मेदारी संभाल रहे थे
जी
अभी तक
जी,
लेकिन पहली बार है जब आप उत्तर प्रदेश में चुनाव प्रचार में जुटे हैं
जी।
आपने कई सभाएं कर ली
जी।
आप किस तरीके से इस चुनाव को देख रहे हैं, क्या खास है आपकी नज़र से?
देखिए, आज तक बहन जी ने हमें बाहर की जिम्मेदारी दी थी, यूपी से बाहर की जिम्मेदारी दी। ये सारा का सारा समय जो है ट्रेनिंग में गया है, समझने के लिए कि पार्टी में काम चलता कैसे है, ज़मीनी स्तर पे कहाँ कमियां हैं, कहाँ पर हमारे लोगों को तकलीफ़ आ रही है पार्टी को आगे बढ़ाने में। तो ये जो ट्रेनिंग का समय निकला उससे काफ़ी चीज़ समझ में आई है और अब इलेक्शन के दौरान एंट्री हुई है यूपी में। एंड आई थिंक अभी जो समय है वो सिर्फ अपने मूवमेंट, अपनी पार्टी, अपने बहन जी के काम को बताने का समय है। काम तो अब इलेक्शन के बाद हमें करने को मिलेगा। तो काफ़ी अच्छा अभी फीडबैक मिल रहा है। काफ़ी लोगों ने बहुत अच्छी अच्छी बातें बताई हैं, बहुत सब कुछ सीखने को मिला है जो बाहर से अब हम यहाँ पे इम्प्लीमेंट करेंगे। तो अभी
लेकिन कहा यह जा रहा था कि अगर देखें तो बीएसपी खत्म हो रही है, बीएसपी का जो जनाधार है वो घट रहा है, बीएसपी का जो वोट शेयर है वो लगातार कम हो रहा है, सीटें बिल्कुल कम हो गई, विधानसभा में 1 सीट। इस तरीके से अगर जब आप सुनते हैं तो आपको क्या लगता है कि सचमुच पार्टी बहुत मुश्किल में है, बीएसपी खत्म होने की स्थिति में आ गई थी?
देखिए, बीएसपी एक पॉलिटिकल पार्टी से पहले एक मूवमेंट है, एक मिशन है जो बहुत सालों पहले शुरू हुआ था। तो ये 5-7 साल में ख़त्म नहीं हो सकता। पॉलिटिकली अगर हमारी सीटें कम या ज़्यादा आती हैं, हाँ उसका इम्पैक्ट पड़ता है हमारे वॉइस पे, हमारे पार्लियामेंट्री उस पे। बट आई फील दैट कि अगर थोड़ा सा काम में करेक्शन का ज़रूरत है। एंड आई थिंक आने वाले 5-7 सालों में आप बीएसपी को वहाँ देखेंगे जहाँ पे बीएसपी कुछ साल पहले हुआ करती थी।
आपके कहने का ये आधार कैसे है कि आने वाले समय में बीएसपी रिवाइव कर जाएगी और वहाँ आएगी जहाँ पर बीएसपी को लोग देखना चाहते हैं?
देखिए, जैसे कि आपको मैंने बताया कि हम पिछले 2.5-3 साल से ट्रेडिंग में थे, तो बहुत सारी चीज़ें हमने देखी, बहुत सारी कमियां सामने आई हैं। तो आई फील दैट कि आप आने वाले समय में वो कमियों को दूर करने का मौका मिलेगा। और जैसी वो कमियां दूर होंगी, मेरे को पूरा भरोसा है कि हमारे साथ जितने भी साथी लोग हैं जो भी पिछले कुछ समय में निराश हो गए थे, परेशान थे, अब वो वापस आएंगे और बहुत जोश से पार्टी को आगे बढ़ाने का काम करेंगे।
लेकिन अगर इस चुनाव के लिहाज से बात की जाए तो इस चुनाव में आपकी नज़र में बीएसपी कैसा प्रदर्शन करने जा रही है? क्योंकि बहुत सारे लोगों को, पॉलिटिकल पंडितों को, राजनीतिक विश्लेषकों को अभी भी उम्मीद नहीं है कि इस चुनाव में बीएसपी कोई बहुत बड़ा बदलाव कर लेगी या बहुत बेहतर प्रदर्शन करेगी। आप कहाँ देख रहे हैं इस चुनाव में?
देखिए, जैसे कि आप बाकी सब लोग मीडिया बंधु भी काफ़ी अच्छा फीडबैक दे रहे हैं। अब मुझे नहीं पता कि कौन से ऐसे एनालिस्ट हैं जो बहुजन समाज पार्टी को बोल रहे हैं कि पीछे रह जाएगी, बट बहुत से लोग हैं, ग्राउंड रिपोर्ट यही कह रही है कि हमारा जो समाज जो इधर उधर भटक गया था वो काफ़ी तेज़ी से वापस आ रहा है। तो आई फील दैट इस चुनाव में भी हमें बहुत अच्छा रिजल्ट देखने को मिलेगा।
कुछ सीट्स में आप अंदाजा बता पाएंगे कि सीट्स आप कितनी जीत पाएंगे, कितनी जगहों पे आप बहुत बेहतर प्रदर्शन करेंगे?
देखिए, सीट्स का तो लास्ट इलेक्शन की काउंटिंग डे तक पता नहीं चलता है। ये तो आप बहुत बखूबी जानते हैं, आपने तो इलेक्शन बहुत नज़दीकी से कवर किया है कि हारता हुआ कैंडिडेट को जिताना या विपक्षी पार्टियाँ जो सरकार में बैठती हैं वो कैसे कर लेती हैं। तो सीट्स पे कमेंट करना थोड़ा सा मेरे लिए मुश्किल होगा, पर मुझे पूरी उम्मीद है कि इस बारी हमारा वोट शेयर बहुत तेज़ी से आगे बढ़ेगा।
आकाश जी, अभी जो पहली आपकी सभा थी नगीना में, मैं वहाँ पे था, मैं आपको वहाँ सुन रहा था
जी,
तो लोग आपके बहुत ही सौम्य और उस बात कर रहे थे कि बहुत सॉफ्ट और सौम्य चेहरा है।
हाँ,
लेकिन जब हमने सुना तो एक फायर ब्रांड नेता की तरह का आपका भाषण था
जी।
तो ये ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन कैसे है कि हम देखते हैं आपको बहुत ही सौम्य और बहुत ही सॉफ्ट, लेकिन जब आप मंच पर बोल रहे हैं तो मंच पर तो आप एकदम फायर ब्रांड हैं।
मंच से मुझे अपने सभी साथी लोगों से बात करने का मौका मिलता है। अभी जैसे मैं आपसे बात कर रहा हूँ तो मैं कोई चिक्कम चिक्की नहीं कर रहा, चिल्ला नहीं रहा, गुस्सा नहीं कर रहा, पर जब मंच से बात करते हैं तो हम मुद्दे लेके खड़े होते हैं वहाँ पे, अपने लोगों के बीच में हम अपने मुद्दे लेके खड़े होते हैं। अब मुद्दों पे हालात ऐसे हैं, वो पॉइंट्स ऐसे हैं कि उसमें इमोशंस निकल आते हैं कि ये जो है वो गलत है। अब जो गलत हो रहा है उस पर गुस्सा नहीं आएगा तो क्या आएगा, बताइए, आप ही बताइए। तो जो गलत हो रहा है वो गलत बताने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं और उसके लिए बुरा तो फील होता ही है, वैसे ही बातें निकल के सामने आ रही हैं।
एंग्री यंग मैन के तौर पर हम लोग देख रहे हैं, लेकिन जब आपसे बात करते हैं तो आपका बिल्कुल अलग अंदाज है
जी। तो एंग्री यंग मैन आई थिंक एजेंडाज, पॉइंट्स और उसको लेके होता है। अगर कुछ गलत है तो उसके लिए गुस्सा आएगा, और अगर कुछ गलत नहीं है तो वो बड़े प्यार मोहब्बत से बात की जाएगी। आप 24 घंटे हॉट हेडेड होके नहीं काम कर सकते, आपको शांति से पेशेंटली होके चीज़ों को एनालाइज करके काम लेना पड़ता है, डिसीजंस वैसे ही लिए जाते हैं।
आपको लगता नहीं है कि कहीं आपका समाज भी एक इसी तरीके के एक एंग्री यंग मैन को ढूंढ रहा है कि जो युवा है, जो दलित युवाओं का एक बहुत बड़ा तबका है, वो कुछ ऐसा ही फायर ब्रांड ढूंढ रहा है बीएसपी के भीतर?
देखिए, जो युवा है ना, वो इस एज पे इमोशनल बहुत होता है, पर हमारा युवा जो है ना, हमारे समाज से, वो पढ़ा लिखा भी है, तो वो जानता है कि कहाँ पे गुस्सा, कहाँ पे एंगर, कहाँ पे एजिटेशन की ज़रूरत है और कहाँ पे ठंडे दिमाग से सोच के सही तरीके से डिसीजन लेना पड़ता है। सो मुझे लगता है कि उन्हें दोनों चीज़ चाहिए, उन्हें वो एंग्री यंग मैन भी चाहिए, उन्हें एक कूल हेडेड ठंडे दिमाग से सोचने वाला एक नेता भी चाहिए, एक लीडर भी चाहिए जो डिफ़िकल्ट सिचुएशन में सही डिसीजन ले सके। बहन जी ने दोनों चीज़ दिखाई थी, मान्यवर साहब सोच समझ के डिसीजन लेते थे, तो आई थिंक वो दोनों क्वालिटीज़ को इम्बाइब करना बहुत ज़रूरी है एक अच्छे लीडर में, स्पेशली दलित लीडर में, क्योंकि यहाँ पे हमारे समाज से निकला हुआ एक शब्द बहुत जल्दी तोड़ मरोड़ के प्रेजेंट किया जा सकता है। तो उस वक्त आपको बड़े संभल के अपने शब्दों का चयन करना चाहिए। जी।
तो आपको लगता है कि इन दोनों का मेल है आपके भीतर?
ये तो अब आप बोल रहे हैं कि मैं स्टेज पे एंग्री यंग मैन हूँ और आपसे जब मैं ऐसे बात कर रहा हूँ तो मैं बहुत सॉफ्ट स्पोकन हूँ। सो आई थिंक आपके सवाल में ही आपका जवाब है।
बिल्कुल। आकाश जी, बीएसपी को जमीन से जुड़ी हुई पार्टी या मिशनरी वर्ग से निकली हुई पार्टी माना जाता है।
जी।
और आज भी बीएसपी अपने कम से कम उस एक पहचान को बीएसपी बना करके रखी है।
जी।
लेकिन विदेश से पढ़ा हुआ एक लड़का, बाहर से एमबीए करके आया हुआ लड़का,
जी,
कैसे इस बीएसपी को अब फर्श से अर्श तक ले जाने की सोच रहा है? फिर से कैसे वापस बसपा को उस लेवल पर ले जाने की सोच रहा है? क्या है आपका एजेंडा?
देखिए, जब पार्टी शुरू की गई थी तब एक तरीका था, एक तरीका था जिसको इस्तेमाल करके मानेवर साहब और बहन जी ने पार्टी के मूवमेंट को खड़ा किया, ग्राउंड लेवल से कार्यकर्ता को जोड़ा और फिर एक मूवमेंट को एक गति दी। पिछले 7-8 सालों में आप भी जानते हैं कि कैसे टेक्नोलॉजी, कैसे यूथ का तरीका बदल गया है, काम करने का, समझने का, सुनने का और अपनी बातों को एक्सप्रेस करने का। अब मेरे पढ़ाई लिखाई से ऑफ कोर्स मेरे को एक थोड़ी सी एडवांटेज है। मैं समझता हूँ कि किस तरीके से आज के टेक्नोलॉजी को यूज़ करके अपने युवा को चैनलाइज करना, उसकी एनर्जी को चैनलाइज करना। तो मुझे लगता है, वेरी कॉन्फिडेंट कि आने वाले समय में, अगले 2.5-3 साल में हम वो बहुत सारी चीज़ें ग्राउंड पे इम्प्लीमेंट कर पाएंगे जिससे हम अपने यूथ को वापस और अपने कैडर को वापस रिवाइव करके एक बहुत ही स्ट्रॉन्ग तरीके से पार्टी को आगे बढ़ा सकते हैं।
This is where we wrap up the news track tonight. For your time and your trust, thank you very much. I look forward to seeing you at 8 p.m. tomorrow. Till then, from all of us here, goodbye, good night.